Discover the incredible moment. A young girl teaches a boy to ride, changing a millionaire's life. Jess had always been a tornado of energy, zipping through her Midwestern neighborhood on her trusted bicycle, an old, weathered thing covered in stickers from childhood camps and adventures. The sun-kissed streets became her playground. The wheels spinning tales of laughter echoed in the warm summer air. She felt alive, a sense of freedom dancing in her heart with each turn of the pedals. Today, little did she know, a whirlwind of emotion was waiting to collide with her spirited life. Everything shifted the day the new family moved in next door. From her treehouse lookout, she spotted Ethan. He stood at the edge of his immaculate driveway, pale and stiff, glancing around as if that lavish house was a cage. At first glance, he seemed to have it all: designer clothes, gadgets that sparkled, a life she'd only seen in movies. But the loneliness in his eyes told a different story. Jess felt an unexpected tug at her heart. She sensed he was more than just a boy with wealth. He was trapped behind walls made of expectations and pressure. Deciding to bridge the gap, Jess approached him, her own adventurous spirit coaxing him out. "Hey, ever ridden a bike?" she asked, beaming with joy. As she explained the magic of riding, the wind in your hair, the freedom of the open road, she could see his uncertainty. But Jess wouldn't be deterred. "Come on, Ethan. You'll love it. It's like flying without leaving the ground," she chirped, her enthusiasm infectious. But Ethan hesitated, fear evident on his face. "I don't know how," he mumbled, the weight of his family's expectations pressing on him like a lead blanket. Jess felt a tightness in her chest, realizing that his shame was not just about bike riding. It symbolized something larger, the burden of a life lived to please others. Before they could embark on this great adventure together, Ethan's parents intervened, worry plastered across their faces. They insisted on keeping him close, stifling the budding joys Jess offered, sending a wave of confusion crashing into Jess's heart. Wasn't friendship meant to break down barriers? That summer, an unexpected mishap propelled everything into chaos. An out-of-control soccer ball from the neighborhood park shattered their fragile reality when it hit Ethan's prized garden gnome, a symbol of his parents' obsession with perfection. The uproar that followed forced Ethan into a confrontation with the rigid values of his family. As Jess watched from a distance, tears brimming in her eyes, she felt betrayal mix with hurt. How could he choose them over her? Time slipped away, each day blending emotions of anger and confusion in a whirlwind of unmet friendship. But that all changed when they both found themselves at a summer fair, celebrating community spirit. Bright lights and laughter wrapped around Jess like a warm hug, but she felt far from it. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As they met amidst the laughter, Jess caught sight of Ethan struggling against the current of his family's desires. Yet, amidst the chaos, a moment of truth emerged. Would he take her hand, the key to a world free of gilded cages? Or would he step back into the shadows of expectations? The sun began to set, casting a golden hue over everything, and Jess stood there, heart pounding, waiting for Ethan's choice. Would he embrace the adventure waiting just beyond his fears? Ethan's gaze flickered between Jess and the clamor of the fair, as if weighing his options. The laughter of children and the sweet aroma of cotton candy filled the air, but all he could hear was a deafening silence ringing in his ears. Jess's eyes sparkled with hope, a beacon in a storm of uncertainty. "Jess," he finally breathed, stepping toward her. But the moment quickly vanished when his parents appeared just behind him, faces stern and worried. The look on their faces was a dark cloud, smothering the brightness Jess had ignited within him. "Ethan, it's getting late. We should head home," his mother urged gently, but it undermined everything Jess wanted to offer. "Just a little longer," Ethan replied, his voice barely above a whisper, as if fearing to voice his true desires. Jess felt her heart seize. This was a battle, one that he had to fight alone, but she couldn't stand by. She took a step forward, her own pleading gaze locking with his. "Don't you want to try?" she urged, her voice shaking with emotion. "You can do this. We'll have fun, I promise. You'll see." Jess's determination burned bright, and in that moment, she realized this wasn't just about teaching him to ride a bike. It was about helping him break free from the invisible chains his family had wrapped around him. The world around him seemed to melt away. The bright lights of the fair danced like fairies, calling out for him to join. Behind him, his parents were tugging him back toward their rigid world. But in front of him stood Jess, offering laughter, ease, and joy. Still, he hesitated, the weight of his upbringing like a boulder on his chest. Then, he remembered the feeling of being trapped in that beautiful, empty house. He remembered the hours spent alone, while his parents strutted around with their grand expectations. Suddenly, his heart surged with a longing for something more. Freedom, laughter, friendship. I want to try," he finally said, his voice steady, cutting through the mounting tension. Jess's face burst into a smile, pure and radiant. The corners of her lips lifted, illuminating everything around them. "Let's do this," she exclaimed, grasping his hand and leading him toward the bike races, a wild sense of adventure bubbling between them. Attendance at the fair surged, people gathered around rides and booths, but Jess and Ethan were in their own world, hearts racing in sync. She helped Ethan mount her bike, his uncertainty bubbling just beneath the surface. He looked fragile up there, but he leaned into the moment. "Just pedal. I'll be right here," Jess urged. And as he began to push off, the familiar feeling of fear and excitement filled him. They glided forward, the laughter of the fair fading in and out like music. Then, suddenly, thought became action. With a burst of confidence, he pedaled harder, feeling the wind slice through the air. To his surprise, Jess was right. It felt magical. The world blurred, vivid colors swirling around him. For the first time, he felt a weight lift from his heart, and joy surged through him like nothing before. But just as quickly as they soared, disaster struck. Ethan lost his balance and tumbled off the bike, landing hard on the ground with a gasp. Jess rushed over, panic flooding her senses. "Ethan!" She knelt by his side, eyes wide with concern. He looked up, shaken but smiling. "Did you see that? I almost had it." Jess laughed, a mix of relief and joy, her heart swelling with pride. "You did! We can try again! We'll get it!" But deep down, she knew this was more than just about riding a bike. This moment unlocked a piece of Ethan that challenged everything he'd known. Yet, lurking just beyond their newfound adventure, were whispers of his parents, their disapproval ready to snap at any moment. As the fair continued around them, she couldn't help but wonder. Could Ethan hold on to this feeling of freedom? Or would he succumb to the pressures and expectations that loomed like shadows? She looked at him, determination blooming in her heart. Let's keep riding. Together. And as they set off for another run, Jess felt a stirring within her. Where would this journey take them next? Ethan steadied himself on the bike once again. This time, the adrenaline pulsed through him, fueled by the laughter and cheers from the fair. Jess stayed close, her presence a steady flame against the gusts of uncertainty. She shouted words of encouragement, her voice a lifeline pulling him back into the thrill. He pushed off, feeling the rubber wheels glide against the asphalt. The initial wobble of the bike became a rhythm he could embrace. Higher, faster, laughter erupted from his lips, mingling with the joyous sounds filling the air. It felt daring and liberating, each petal a shout against the rules he often felt trapped by. "Look at you go!" Jess cheered, her claps ringing above the noise. That simple praise sent warmth flooding through him. But right then, amidst the celebration, doubt crept back. The weight of the past pressed heavily on his shoulders. The shadow of his parents' disappointment loomed larger with every turn. What if they were watching? What if they stopped him from riding ever again? Suddenly he wobbled. Panic flashed in his chest. The bike swayed beneath him, teetering on the edge of control. Just as quickly as that thought surged, he felt Jess's hand on his back, steadying him again. "You've got this. Just believe in yourself, Ethan." Her faith in him acted like a shield against his fears. Taking a deep breath, he remembered their laughter echoing in the fair breeze. He kicked harder, filling his small world with the vibrant colors swirling around him. He could drown out the thoughts, if only for a moment. He took another turn, smoother this time. The thrill of the rush overtook him, and for just that instant, he tasted total freedom. As they rounded another corner, a family nearby noticed his joyous attempts. They turned and cheered as if he were a contestant in a race, their claps and cheers showering him with encouragement. Ethan couldn't help but feel like a part of something much bigger than himself. "Yes, you did it!" Jess beamed at him, her eyes shining with pride. The way she looked at him made his heart soar and filled him with the courage to keep going. Together they rode past the dazzling bright lights, reveling in the madness of the fair. But as they finally came to a stop, he caught sight of his parents across the field. They stood together, arms crossed, faces pinched in disapproval. The fleeting joy he had felt began twisting into anxiety. He turned to Jess, who sensed the change immediately. "Ethan, are you okay?" she asked, concern flickering across her face. His voice faltered. What if they don't want me to do this? What if all of this," he gestured around at the fair, "is just wrong?" Before she could answer, Ethan's parents made their way toward them, the stern expressions no longer distant, but imminent. Jess glanced between Ethan and his approaching parents, her heart racing. Her instinct was to shield him, to pull him away from the storm brewing. But there was a fierceness growing within her, a realization that this moment was about more than just riding a bike. It echoed deeper truths about choosing who to stand by when the pressure mounted. "Ethan, you can decide," Jess said, her voice steady despite the tension. "You can choose how you want to ride this out." Just then, Ethan stood tall, defiance kindling in his chest. His heart raced, caught between the warmth of possibility and the cold weight of expectation. Could he choose to ride against the tide? His parents were close now, and he could almost hear their disapproving whispers. "This isn't for you, Ethan." As the world narrowed around him, he felt the grip of Jess's hand, urging him to move forward, to embrace the freedom waiting on the other side. "Let's face this together," she whispered, intertwining their fingers. And just as he opened his mouth to respond, a high-pitched whistle pierced the air. The sound erupted from deep within the fair, signaling an end to the festivities. A chill of uncertainty cracked through him. What would happen next? Would everything change in an instant? Ethan took a deep breath, ready to confront the day's most important decision. Ethan's gaze locked onto his parents as they reached him. The disappointment etched on their faces felt like a cold slap, grounding him in reality. Jess squeezed his hand tighter. He could feel her heartbeat thumping in sync with his, a reminder that they were in this together. "Ethan," his mother started, her voice sharp, almost cutting through the vibrant atmosphere around them. "We've already talked about this. This isn't a good idea." His father chimed in. "You need to come home with us now. You're not built for this kind of thing." Their words were like heavy weights, dragging him down. He could feel Jess's support beside him, but the pressure from his parents swelled like a tidal wave ready to crash over him. Panic bubbled in his chest, warring with the warmth of Jess's presence. No, he found himself saying, surprised by the strength behind it. I want to ride. I want to be here. The space between them shimmered with tension, the bustling fair around them fading into a dull hum. Jess's eyes widened in surprise. She had expected him to falter, to retreat. Instead, there was a fire igniting within him that surprised even himself. "Ethan, you can't be serious," his mother exclaimed, incredulity coloring her tone. "You've never done anything like this before." Jess's grip tightened, and she took a half step forward, defending him. "It's okay to try new things. He's showing progress. You should encourage him, not hold him back." Ethan couldn't remember the last time someone had stood up for him this way. He felt the color rise in his cheeks, a mix of joy and determination. The spark in Jess made him want to push further. "I'm not asking for permission," he said, his voice steadier now. "I'm choosing this for myself." For the first time, the words tasted braver than he imagined. His parents recoiled slightly, jaws dropping at his unexpected resolve. The crowds continued to cheer around them, blissful and unaware. Maybe the fair was a metaphor for the life he wanted, filled with joy, laughter, and the thrill of being true to himself. "Ethan," his father warned, "this isn't something we can just dismiss. Think of the what?" he interrupted, heart racing. "The disapproving looks, the expectations. I want to create my own path." Silence enveloped the moment. His mother's brow furrowed, disbelief and frustration pulling her features tight. Ethan took a breath, grounding himself in the reality of what he wanted. He felt Jess standing firm beside him, her quiet strength lending him courage. Just then, Jess stepped closer, a warm but firm smile breaking through the tense atmosphere. "You have to let him grow, just like he deserves to. It's not just about riding a bike. It's about finding who he is." He turned to Jess, her encouragement lighting a fire within him. Her belief in him felt like a safety net, a promise that even if he stumbled, he wouldn't have to face it alone. But Ethan's parents remained unmoved, crossing their arms, still unwilling to yield. His heart sank a little, but time was slipping away. "I need to find out who I could be," he whispered to Jess, sharing a moment of truth with her. "It's not just about the bike." "Then go," she replied, eyes sparkling. "Show them who you really are." With that, Ethan turned back to his parents one last time. "I'm going to ride, and I hope one day you can cheer for me too." He took a step back, ready to mount the bike again. The adrenaline surged, his heart pounding with excitement and fear. Would his parents come to understand? He felt the bike beneath him, steady and true. As he prepared to push off again, a loud cheer erupted from the crowd, rooting for him, lifting him up into the vibrant energy surrounding the fair. But just as he was about to pedal away, another piercing whistle rang through the air, not from the fair, but from the darkening clouds gathering overhead. The atmosphere shifted. It felt like a storm was brewing, both outside and within him. What was about to happen? Would he hold on to this newfound courage, or would everything be washed away before he had the chance to soar? Ethan's heart raced as he scanned the dark clouds looming above. The urgent weight of his parents' gazes seemed to press down on him like an anchor, yet the deafening cheers from the crowd ignited a flicker of hope within. "Ethan, are you really going to do this?" Jess asked, her voice barely above the noise of the fair, but filled with determination. Ethan nodded, channeling every bit of resolve he could muster. This was his moment to step into a life he longed for, a chance to shed the weight of expectations. He hopped on the bike, feeling the comfortable grip of the handlebars beneath his palms. His legs wobbled slightly, but adrenaline surged through him, steadying the quiver. The crowd's enthusiasm wrapped around him like a warm blanket, despite the ominous weather above. "Just breathe," Jess whispered, stepping back to give him space. Her words anchored him, a reminder that he wasn't going at it alone. Ethan took a deep breath, letting the fear wash away momentarily, and pushed off, feeling the thrill of movement as the bike rolled forward. Pedaling faster, he felt the wind whip through his hair. For a split second, everything else faded. The disappointment of his parents, the dark clouds above, the past that tried to tether him down. This was freedom. This was joy. But then came a crack of thunder overhead, an uninvited reminder that not all storms could be predictably navigated. He glanced back at his parents, their eyes wide in shock, their faces a mix of concern and disbelief. In that moment, Ethan felt a flicker of doubt. Would they see? Would they ever understand? "Look ahead," Jess called out, her voice cutting through his hesitations. "Focus on the ride." Her encouragement lifted him back. He turned his gaze forward, solely concentrating on the path that lay ahead. Just then, he spotted a small jump set up in the middle of the makeshift track. The wave of uncertainty crashed against him, but Jess's lingering belief in him propelled him forward. "You can do this," echoed in his mind. Deciding to commit, he pedaled harder, feeling the bike's tires grip the ground momentarily before launching into the air. Time slowed, and his heart soared with him. The world below blurred into a kaleidoscope of colors and sounds. He realized that in this split second, he was more than just Ethan, the boy trapped by his parents' expectations. He was soaring like a bird, free and limitless. But the landing came suddenly, shaking him to his core. He fought to regain control as the bike jolted beneath him. His heart pounded, the thunderous applause of the crowd cascading over him like rain. But even with the thrill, he felt 3 pairs of eyes glued to him, and doubt whispered again. Then the storm broke, literally. Rain began to pour down, heavy drops soaking the ground, transforming the atmosphere into chaos. He could only hear Jess screaming his name above the roar of wind and tumultuous shouts. The throngs of spectators scrambled under tents and awnings, worried about the mounting storm. "Ethan!" Jess shouted, her voice lost in the wind as she rushed toward him. "Are you okay?" He nodded, shaking off the water that dripped down his face. The moment was bittersweet. Joy for the ride mixed with the fear of his falling out with his parents, and the rain drove home the uncertainties of his newfound freedom. As he glanced back at his parents, their faces were obscured by the deluge, but he could see concern etched deep into their features, their protective instincts roused by the storm of both weather and emotions. Would this storm wash away his moment of bravery, or would it be the catalyst for something greater? Ethan's heart pounded again, not just from the thrill, but from the daunting reality of what lay ahead. He wanted to prove to them, to the world, who he really was. "Stay close," he shouted back to Jess, his own voice barely audible through the storm. What was he willing to risk as he chased after the truth of who he could be? Would he fight against the storm, or let it sweep him away? As the raindrops danced all around them, Ethan prepared for whatever was about to come, because he knew this was just the beginning. Ethan kept pedaling, the rain drenching him, yet he felt alive. It wasn't just the bike beneath him anymore. It was his entire being racing through the storm. He could almost taste freedom on his lips, the vibrant air filling his lungs with promises of change. "Let's head to the tent!" Jess shouted over the storm, concern knitting her brow. But Ethan shook his head. He wasn't ready to retreat. Not yet. He could see other riders still taking chances amid the downpour, their laughter mingling with the rain. The sounds of joy and thrill swept around him like a magnetic pull. It reminded him of childhood days, when adventure meant more than parental expectations and the confusion of growing up. He craved a connection to that simpler time. So, he spurred himself on, hitting another jump, this one wider, the ramp slick from the rain but still calling to him. He could feel the crowd's energy even through the storm's downpour, how their cheers mingled with the thunder that rumbled overhead. As he soared into the air, he felt a second of weightlessness, a feeling that made his heart skip, chased away doubts, and swept away fears. In this moment, he was untethered, a boy suspended in time. The world blurred, colors mixing into a vibrant mural of emotions. But just as quickly as it started, it ended. The landing jolted him back to reality. His tires squealed against the wet ground, struggling for grip. Bursting joy clashed with the raw panic of losing control. He heard distant shouts, voices filtering through the storm. It took him a second to realize they were from Jess, her worry palpable even over the storm's rage. "Ethan, watch out!" she screamed, pointing toward a puddle pooling dangerously ahead. In that instant, his reflexes kicked in. He veered sharply to the side, narrowly avoiding a muddy disaster. His heart raced, not just from the adrenaline, but from the realization that he had to be aware, not just of the bike, but of the world around him. As he glanced back at Jess, her face was illuminated by a nearby flash of lightning, and the tension in her eyes mirrored the worry in his heart. Her faith in him seemed to tether him back to reality. Was he doing this just for himself? Or for her, too? The thought struck him hard, making his pulse quicken. He had always been the one to shy away, to blend in, to fit into the mold that others had built for him. But Jess saw him differently. She believed in the spark he held inside. And maybe, just maybe, he could believe in it too. Ethan shifted his focus back to the track. He pushed his legs harder than before, aiming for a new level of freedom. The storm swirled around him, but he fought against it. This was more than riding. It was about breaking free from everything that had held him back for so long. "Ethan!" Jess's voice surged through the chaos, and he turned to her. She was smiling now, her eyes wide with excitement. "You're doing it. Keep going." Her encouragement ignited something deep within him. He found the strength to push himself further, taking jumps higher than before, allowing the exhilaration of each rise and fall to wash over him like the rain drenching his skin. The world was rushing past him, but he felt centered, determined. As he crossed the finish line, the cheers of the crowd roared like thunder, mixing with the rain and chaos around him. But for the first time, he realized it wasn't the applause he craved. It was something deeper, the acceptance of who he was becoming. For a brief moment, the rain stopped, leaving behind a shimmering sheen on the ground. A rainbow burst forth in the distance, arching across the sky. And in that instant, Ethan knew something had shifted inside him. What lay ahead was uncharted territory, filled with both excitement and fear. He had taken a leap that felt life-changing. But as the next wave of spectators dispersed, he noticed his parents still watching, lingering at the edge of the fairgrounds, confusion and concern mixed in their eyes. Had the storm transformed not just him, but the way they saw him too? Or would they remain stuck in their expectations, unwilling to embrace this new version of their son? The weight of their gaze anchored him, just as their absence had once trapped him. Ethan stood up on his pedals, heart racing anew, ready for whatever awaited him next. Would he be brave enough to bridge that gap? As the adrenaline faded, a new challenge emerged, promising to test everything he had just felt, his hope, his courage, and the bond between him and his parents. Would he ride into the chance of a new beginning? Or would the sound of thunder threaten once again to pull him back? Ethan dropped his bike to the ground and wiped the rain from his eyes, peering through the swirling mist as his heart raced, not only from the exhilarating ride, but also from the heaviness of his parents' gaze. The crowd began to disperse, laughter and excitement swirling away with the last remnants of the storm. Jess approached, her hair soaked but her smile unwavering, and he could feel an energy crackling between them, one that filled him with hope. "Did you see that? You were flying!" she exclaimed, throwing her arms up in excitement. The joy in her voice sparked something within him, pushing aside the doubts whispering in the back of his mind. He glanced back towards where his parents stood, caught in a storm of their own. Their expressions did little to match the joy swirling around the fairgrounds. They looked lost, struggling to understand how this new version of their son had emerged so fiercely from the remnants of the storm. "Ethan!" Jess called him back. You okay? He forced a smile, biting back the worry bubbling inside. Yeah, just a little distraction, he replied, his voice wavering. The tightness in his chest told a different story. It was the gap he had felt for so long, the uncertainty now mixed with exhilaration, threatening to drown out the moment's bliss. Pressure from the folks, huh? Jess said lightly, her understanding tempering his anxiety. You just need to show them what you can do. Could he do that? Could he really take this leap and let them see the real him? Ethan stepped towards the edge of the spectators, the mud squelching beneath his feet, each step a battle against the weight of expectations. He could feel Jess's presence beside him, a warm glow in the chill of the evening. She breathed confidence into him, urging him to face the fears that had often held him back. Let's talk to them, she said, her voice steady. You never know. They might surprise you. Gathering his resolve, Ethan nodded, and together they walked towards his parents. His heart thundered, louder than the storm. As they drew closer, the tension in the air thickened, an invisible barrier that had built through years of unmet expectations. Mom, Dad, he started, his voice cracking a little. Ethan. His mother's voice cut through, worry spilling out in her tone. We've been so worried. You could have hurt yourself out there. The rain makes everything slippery. It was amazing, Jess chimed in, her enthusiasm filling the space between them. Ethan was incredible. He really found his stride, you know? The jumps, the speed. His father merely crossed his arms, scanning Ethan's face for understanding. But you should be more careful, Ethan. You can't take those kinds of risks. Ethan felt his heart sink. The fear buried deep within them didn't feel like concern. It felt like a brick wall slamming against his newfound passion. He opened his mouth again, but hesitated, a lump forming in his throat. It's just that... He searched for the words, strained beneath the weight of their expectations. I want to show you who I am and what I can do. This riding, it makes me feel free. I feel alive. For a moment, silence hung heavy, amplifying the heartbeat thrumming in his ears. His mother exchanged a glance with his father, and for just a heartbeat, Ethan hoped for an understanding, a bridge across the gap that had formed. Then, out of the silence, his mother's eyes softened. We just want you to be safe, Ethan. That's all. Jess squeezed his arm, and Ethan felt the spark of encouragement again. A flicker of hope ignited. Maybe this would lead to something more. But before he could think of a response, another crack of lightning flashed, hinting at the storm still swirling in both his heart and the clouds above. How could he break through the years of silence? How could he help them see? Would he find that thin line separating expectations from acceptance? Maybe you can ride for us one more time, Jess suggested, her voice light yet expectant, her eyes shimmering with challenge and light. Show them what it really means to fly. Ethan looked back at his parents. The thunder rumbled in the distance, but it was their reaction that truly shook him. Would they finally see him for who he truly was, or would he have to prove it all over again? As the rain began to fall once more, thick and heavy, Ethan knew he had a choice ahead, a leap into an uncertain future, hovering on the edge of the unknown. Would he take that jump? Ethan's heart raced, the rain pouring down like a river from the sky, mixing with the adrenaline still pulsing through his veins. He exchanged a glance with Jess, her eyes bright with encouragement, and felt her faith wrap around him like a safety net. Okay, he said, his voice steadying. I'll do it. His parents stepped back a little, curiosity peeking through their worry. Ethan turned towards the bike, its frame glistening beneath the raindrops. He needed to prove his love for this sport, not just to himself, but to them. He had to show them this wasn't just a hobby, it was who he was. Just give it a little gas and let it feel you, Jess said, her voice a calming balm against the storm. He could sense her presence, grounding him with a force that made him feel invincible, even as rain stung his face. With a deep breath, he hopped onto his bike, the familiar grip of the handlebars easing his jitters. As he revved the engine, the low growl echoed in the empty fairgrounds, the sound swallowed by sheets of rain. Ethan took a moment. He could feel the eyes of his parents boring into him. Would they understand? Then Jess nodded at him, a smile dancing on her lips. That was all the motivation he needed. He shot off, tires gripping the soaked earth, launching into the first jump, soaring higher than he ever had before. Time stretched as he hung in the air, a moment suspended between fear and freedom. When gravity took hold again, he landed cleanly, his heart soaring alongside the bike. He felt his spirit ignite, the thrill mingling with the rain on his cheeks. He took turns, each one sharper than the last, the world becoming a blur around him. The thunder rolled, but all he could hear was the thrum of his heart, echoing with every turn. He glanced back briefly and saw his parents, wide-eyed, mouths slightly open, expressions of surprise plastered on their faces. For once they weren't wrapped in concern. They looked engaged, wondering. With renewed fuel pumping through him, Ethan pushed harder, diving into another jump, this one bigger than the last. The rush was intoxicating. The air felt electric. In that split second of weightlessness, he felt every worry drift away. It was just him, the bike, and the open sky. Landing solidly, he swerved smoothly as he approached Jess, who was cheering him on, her voice slicing through the sound of the pouring rain. She was a beacon of light, guiding him forward, urging him to show the world what he was made of. He could feel the excitement radiating not just from her, but from everyone around them. It was as if the rain had cleared the air, revealing possibilities. Suddenly, he knew this ride wasn't just for him. It was for them, too. He could show them how this mattered. With an exhilarated shout, he turned his attention back to the track. He needed to give it everything he had. A real show this time. He could feel the pressure of his parents' expectations lift as they leaned in, caught up in the spectacle. But then, as he landed the final jump, a crack of thunder echoed louder than before, lightning striking closer than it had all night. His bike skidded to the side, and time seemed to slow. Ethan grappled for balance but felt himself tipping. Would he crash? Would he fall? Fear surged through him, mingling with the thrill, and in that terrifying moment he realized, sometimes you have to risk everything just to show who you really are. As he fought to regain control, he stole another glance at his parents. Their faces were tense, but their eyes sparkled with a glimmer of hope he had never noticed before. Would this be the moment everything shifted? Would they finally see the truth of who he was? And as he grasped the handlebars tighter, feeling the surge of power beneath him, Ethan resolved to find out exactly what it would take to make them understand. Ethan's mind raced as his bike careened sideways, tires skidding against the treacherous mud. It was a pivotal moment, suspended between the thrill of victory and the threat of defeat. He felt every muscle in his body tense, as if they were all working in unison to restore balance. The rain, relentless and cold, struck his face like tiny daggers. But that pain was a reminder to push through, to fight for every ounce of determination he had. He closed his eyes for a split second, took a deep breath, and then he did the one thing he needed to do. He leaned into the turn. His instincts kicked in as he fought against the impending crash. The world around him zoomed back into focus, and suddenly he was upright again. He surged forward, heart pounding, the adrenaline coursing through him with every rev of the engine. Cheers erupted from Jess, blending with the sound of raindrops colliding with earth. "That's it, Ethan. You've got this." He spotted her, shining amid the downpour like an unwavering lighthouse. Her smile was contagious, infectious enough to push him beyond the limits he had feared. He didn't just ride for himself anymore. He was riding for her, for the hope he saw in his parents' eyes, for every moment that had led him here. As he blazed down the track, the landscape blurred with the rain-slicked mud and the neon colors of the fairgrounds glowing through the storm. Each jump he took felt like a message to the world that he would not be shackled by fear. He soared higher and higher, the joy bubbling inside him like a celebration. The bike soared through the air, lifting not just him, but his burdens too. But then, he miscalculated. The last jump was daunting, higher and farther than anything he'd encountered before. For a heartbeat, doubt clawed at him. But Jess's voice drifted through the haze, a tether pulling him back from the abyss of uncertainty. "You can do this, Ethan. Trust yourself." His heart roared with determination again, overpowering any flicker of fear. He launched off the ramp, feeling weightless, the world below falling away. Time slowed as he soared through the sky, the rain-turned silken veil framing him. This was freedom. This was what he had been yearning for. But as he began to descend, a crack of thunder boomed like a warning bell, shaking him from his peaceful reverie. He felt the bike wobble under him, and panic surged anew. Would this end in disaster after all? Would he give in to the darkness of self-doubt? He clenched the handlebars tighter, and in that instant, something inside him shifted. He knew he had to believe in his strength, in the journey, in who he had become. The ground rushed up to meet him, and he focused, eyes wide, heart pounding, willing himself to land it cleanly. With a jolting bump, the tires hit the ground. The bike jolted, but Ethan held steady, adrenaline mixing with sheer elation. It wasn't perfect, but he had made it. He could feel the rhythm of the spectators' cheers wrapping around him like a warm embrace. For a moment, he looked out at his parents, who were now beaming with pride. Their worry was replaced with something else. A realization, perhaps? He couldn't decipher it just yet, but it sent a jolt through him that made his heart swell. He didn't just ride to impress them. He rode to share who he was, to unveil the passion burning inside him like a flame refusing to be extinguished. And as he cruised back to Jess, flashing her a grin that felt like victory itself, he felt emboldened. This ride had changed everything, but what came next was still a mystery, one that left him feeling exhilarated, hopeful, and just a little scared. Because sometimes it takes one ride to show your true self. But could Ethan do it again? Would he find that courage when faced with a bigger challenge ahead? Ethan slowed to a stop beside Jess, breathless and drenched, but never more alive. The cheers of the crowd faded into a soothing hum against the backdrop of his pounding heart. He glanced back at his parents, their faces now softened from concern to something undeniably supportive. A spark of hope ignited within him, and he felt the weight of his journey begin to shift. "I did it!" he exclaimed, his voice a mixture of disbelief and exhilaration. Jess beamed at him, her smile brighter than the rainbow cascading across the sky behind them, radiant and inviting. "You did! That was amazing, Ethan! I knew you could!" She cheered, jumping up and down, her energy infectious. In that moment, everything felt possible. He was embraced by the warmth of victory, both personal and shared. As the rain slackened, Ethan prepared to ride back towards his parents. He felt Jess's hand brush his arm before she released a deep breath. "Are you ready to talk to them?" she asked softly, her gaze glancing toward the distant figures of his mom and dad. Ethan nodded, determination coursing through him. Victory on the bike was only half the battle. Now he would face the confrontation that had loomed over him like rain clouds. With Jess by his side, he felt stronger. Taking a deep breath, he pushed the bike towards his parents, his heart drumming a steady rhythm of resolve. "Mom," he began, his voice steady. "Dad, I know you were worried, but I had to take a risk. It was about more than just riding. It was about finding who I am. His mother stepped forward, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Ethan, she started, her voice soft but firm. We just wanted to keep you safe. You scared us when you rode out there in the storm. He felt a pang of understanding, the love wrapped in layers of worry. I know, but when I rode, I felt free. For the first time. I wanted you to see that side of me, to know I can do this, and I love it. His father, arms still crossed, shifted slightly, the hard lines of his face softening. It's just, you've never taken those kinds of risks before. We didn't know this part of you, he replied, glancing down as he spoke, the tension drifting away in waves. Because I've been too scared to show you, Ethan admitted. I want to find my own way, to take chances. I want to make choices that are mine. He felt the truth behind every word he shared. For a moment, silence enveloped them, the tension palpable. Then his mother stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. You're right. We've been so focused on keeping you safe that we didn't see you. Can you support me? He asked, the vulnerability leaching into his voice. I need you to trust me, believe in me, and what I can do. They exchanged glances, their eyes reflecting a mixture of reflection and understanding. And slowly his father uncrossed his arms. We want to see you succeed, he finally said, the barriers crumbling away. Just be smart about it. There's a balance. Ethan exhaled, a weight lifting from his heart. I promise I will. Together we can figure this out. Jess watched, her pride for Ethan swelling. The clouds parted above them, revealing the sun's golden glow, bathing the fairgrounds in warmth. The storm may have drenched them, but it had also washed away the residues of doubt lingering between them. I can't promise I won't worry, his mother added, her voice trembling with emotion, but I will try to trust you more. Everything doesn't have to be perfect for it to matter, joked Jess, bringing a lightness to the moment that made Ethan grin. Ethan turned back to her, a true smile breaking through. Thank you for believing in me, Jess. You helped me see that this, being me, was worth fighting for. And I'll always be here for you, helping you break free whenever you need, she replied, her words a soft promise lingering in the air. As they stood together, a band of laughter and cheers erupted from the fair, drifting on the breeze. Ethan felt anchored by the love that surrounded him, his parents, Jess, and the community that had come to witness his ride. In that moment, he understood that freedom wasn't just about flying high on a bike. It was also about building bridges, capturing joy, and facing life's storms together. The bond between them began to take a new form, rooted in acceptance, joy, and the willingness to embrace change. And so, with a heart full of hope and newfound courage, Ethan leaned on the support of his friends and family. The journey ahead would be filled with challenges, but now he felt ready to face them. Not as a boy confined by expectations, but as a young man riding toward his own truth. The rest of the fair stretched before him, filled with adventures waiting to be discovered. Together they would forge a path, tearing down barriers and redefining who they were. This was just the beginning. So, if you loved this story and want to see more incredible journeys, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button immediately to feed the algorithm and keep the great stories coming. I want to hear from you. Leave a comment sharing how you felt about this ending. Your reactions mean the world. And don't wait. Not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. True fans understand the importance of spreading the inspiration. Let's do this together.